Now imagine a place, and we wish you didn't, where women are not allowed to even speak in public. That place is now Afghanistan under the Taliban. They recently imposed the most serious restrictions yet on women and girls, who must now also fully cover their face and bodies, cannot read or sing out loud, and must have a male chaperone outside the home, and cannot even look at men who are unrelated to them. A true dystopia. Mitra Mehran is an Afghan human rights activist, now with the Atlantic Council, who's campaigned for international recognition of gender apartheid in Afghanistan and beyond. And she joins us now from Washington. A warm welcome to the program. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
You know, when we talk about erasing women from public life, that seems to be what these edicts are designed to be. It's now, we have to remind everyone, more than 3 years since the Taliban took over. It was, in fact, a chaotic evacuation that led to the U.S., its allies, ending its 20-year occupation. And now women are completely isolated. Can you give us a sense of just how dehumanizing the situation is for women and girls right now under the Taliban?
Thank you. Before coming here, I went over the stories of some of the women that I usually talk to in the campaign ahead of the third anniversary of the Taliban. We collected some stories on how these draconian decrees impact their lives on a daily basis. I came across this story of high school students who haven't been able to go to school for the past 3 years. And she wrote to us that she has tried to commit suicide 2 times so far, and then she doesn't know what others think, but she thinks she will go insane. And then I was talking to another group of women, and they inside Afghanistan. They were saying, yes, the law that the Taliban just published says women can go out for basic needs, survival things like food or medicine, but they were like, we cannot speak, we cannot show our faces, and we have to have a man to chaperone us outside. So when you see that in context of Afghanistan, that's actually de facto denial of having access to these basic needs that's there. And this is when we speak about this, it's not just any act, but it's the Taliban laws that just got expanded and intensified when they published their 114 pages of their Minister of Vice in virtue law, that in 35 articles actually criminalize the face and the very voice of women. And this is not something new. It's a continuation of a series of decrees that have issued since they came to power.
It isn't new, but it certainly seems far more draconian than even was the case a few years ago. You know, you are so right to mention the mental health, and there is a mental health crisis on the ground right now, and many can imagine why. I want you to listen now to a story that we did recently regarding the suffering of these women and girls. Listen.
Huddled on the floor over school books, 16-year-old Arzo meticulously copies the English sentences. Her neat cursive writing, a display of devotion to furthering her education. Learning new words makes me happy, she explains. But this scene was unthinkable just 8 months ago when we first met Arzo in the same room on the outskirts of Karachi in Pakistan. Arzo was bedridden, her skeletal frame wasting away. Every breath she took and movement she made causing unbearable pain. Arzo is from neighbouring Afghanistan. And it's there in her home in July of last year she tried to kill herself.
Can you talk to us about...
This is the first time the teenager, whose identity is hidden due to security concerns, is able to speak to us about what led her to that point. On that day, I felt like everything was over. I glanced at pictures of my classmates and felt a deep sense of longing. I was overwhelmed by hopelessness, and that's why I drank battery acid, convinced it would end my life.
The situation's so overwhelming. We're happy to report that Arzo is now making a remarkable recovery, but because she's receiving life-saving treatment. If I hear you correctly, you hear a lot of stories of desperation. What are your worries as these new edicts take hold in Afghanistan?
So as the time passes, so the Taliban system get more established, and the institutionalized and systematic nature of their regime get more draconian and harsh on women. My main concern is the trajectory it sets on the life of women and girls in Afghanistan. We won't be able to reverse it for decades to come. So that's why inside Afghanistan Gender Apartheid campaign in Gender Apartheid Today, we are calling for international community to respond and act and criminalize what's happening in Afghanistan. Why, for a girl going to school, when it's banned, it's not a crime yet? And I think seeing especially this new law that is, as I told before, continuation of many other draconian laws that basically has imprisoned women inside their houses, should shake the conscience of humanity. And then I think as a global community, we should be responsible and act to respond to it, because we have international law that tell us that this shouldn't be acceptable in anywhere else around the world. I call on everyone who hear me that see it as a global responsibility and doesn't allow such an action to be normalized in anywhere else in the world. And women inside.
But why do you believe it has been normalized, perhaps, in Afghanistan? Do you believe that there's Western complicity here, especially with the withdrawal 3 years ago, but also in the way that they have negotiated and dealt with the Taliban since?
Exactly. Unfortunately, women of Afghanistan has been taking risk, going to the street to protest Taliban, accepting gunshots, pepper sprays, lashes, imprisonment, torture, and even death. But then, so when the world's approach toward the Taliban is so conciliatory and appeasing, the future they look forward to look very grim. We saw that the international community had a UN-led format event in Doha this year, which I was participating in the second Doha. In the third Doha, just to make sure the Taliban are present there and to make them happy, they didn't allow any civil society or women to be part of that meeting. And also they didn't include any women's issues or women's rights and human rights issues on their agenda. And we have been seeing that they are speaking about opening their missions inside the Taliban, and we see that there is travel bans for the Taliban members are not being implemented. They're traveling to the Western countries and the regional countries. So the women of Afghanistan have been left alone in the past 3 years. And that's why inside they're calling for it, for gender apartheid to be codified within international law, because it brings accountability both to the Taliban, but also for the states in other countries that are, in terms of their engagement and responsibility towards Afghanistan.
Mitra, we don't have a lot of time left, but I do want to ask you, some will say that, look, the humanitarian situation in Afghanistan remains grave, that the West must engage on some level in order to deal with basic human needs. To put a fine point on it, would you like them to impose more sanctions? Would you like them to withdraw from having any discussions with the Taliban? What do you think would work?
For me, it's important that anything that happened towards Afghanistan should be principled, should be considerate of women's rights and women's voices in the process. I am not against humanitarian aid, but the way that's now they're sending it to Afghanistan, the way it's getting distributed inside Afghanistan, it's not gender sensitive, it's not monitored properly. We need to make sure that humanitarian we send to Afghanistan, people of Afghanistan who deserve it, including women, receive it, and that doesn't embolden the Taliban regime. So that's why we are calling for codification of the gender apartheid, to make sure all these processes, the engagements, everything that happens towards Afghanistan be principled and within the context and framework of international law and human rights values that we all admire.
Mitra Madan, it is a story obviously that we will continue to follow here on Amanpour, and we thank you for your time today.
Thank you.